I think it's fair to say that at Fidelis, social issues are more central to our ESG approach than would be the case at many other peers, where often the focus is really very much on the E. So we've actively pushed ahead on various issues such as animal welfare, capital punishment, and anti-slavery, and that's including on the underwriting side. So in terms of difficulties, I think controversies around human and labor rights can be very tricky because there's often no objective external source of information to go on. So it goes back to the question around how we can ensure compliance with standards. For big companies with sprawling supply chains, you really would have to get into the weed of their internal operations, and there's not really many very good benchmarks that do that comprehensively. Some ESG rating providers will give an assessment of performance in this area, and some of them will give a deep dive on specific controversies. But even then, in our experience, it's not always clear. For example, we've seen cases where external assessments exist, are unfavorable, and the company in question takes the view that these are incorrect following their own due diligence efforts. And there's no really single source of truth on such discussions. And in those cases where we can't get comfortable, we feel we would rather err on the side of caution and not take the risk of supporting companies with a tainted reputation. But clearly it is an area where it is quite difficult to really assess sometimes. The forced labour clause is something Fidelis developed together with Aon and Marsh starting from 2022, although the work started well before that. And we've been actively promoting that in the market in order to get buy-in from more and more industry participants. So it's framed as a commitment by the insured. They'll abide by all relevant legislation and regulation on forced labour during the period of the insurance contract. In other words, it's something they should already be doing. We're not asking them to really commit to more than that, although in practice we find that anyone who is not actively monitoring the issue and therefore uncomfortable making the commitment will likely refuse to accept it. So it's actually quite a good filter. So for us at Fidelis, about 90% of our marine cargo book applies the clause. We also use it for some DNF risks in areas we consider particularly exposed to this issue, such as, for example, the garments industry. In terms of operations, we use the clause in our material service contracts to ensure that service providers abide by all anti-slavery and human trafficking laws. We've also satisfied ourselves that property managers for all our main premises have high standards in relation to anti-slavery and human trafficking, and the same is true for our investment managers.